Okay, welcome. We are here at NetApp Insight for Tech Unplugged Live, and now I'm with Gabe Chapman, the Office of the CTO, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
I'm a member of the Office of the CTO. I work for Val Bercovici, who came over to be Solidfire's CTO once NetApp acquired us.
That's great. So, I want to talk with you about Solidfire, and well, now we can talk about the whole NetApp, right? Because you are taking the lead in the development of the efforts for OpenStack, for example.
Yeah, OpenStack inside of NetApp and both Solidfire, there's been a strong development cycle around that space. Both Solidfire and NetApp entered into the OpenStack arena back in 2011. Both independent companies had their own parallel development tracks where we kind of focused on integrations and building out the Cinder project, which is the API set for block storage services in an OpenStack environment. Solidfire was really instrumental in getting that up and running, as one of our chief engineers, John Griffith, was the product technical lead for that project, broke it out of the Nova Compute construct and made it its own project. And then, actually after 3 years of doing that, which is kind of a thankless job, he decided, I'm going to go back to developing and working inside Solidfire predominantly, and then handed it off to others. And so today it is where we have an entire ecosystem of storage vendors that have developed their own drivers for the Cinder project itself.
And you contributed also to the Manila project, right?
Yeah, Manila is the file services project that NetApp has kind of taken a primary lead in, as well as working with partners like Mirantis to kind of help do the development around that. And so as we start to see OpenStack become a more mature platform and not so much of a science project per se, we see enterprises looking at it and they want to get all of the different storage services that they would totally leverage with inside their traditional enterprise or legacy environments.
So I think we touched this yesterday with your colleagues about the fact that there is a large portion of Ceph installations in the more, but we don't know how many of them are in production or just development or proof of concept. And if we take the sum of Solidfire and NetApp systems, you have a very large part of OpenStack installations now, right?
Yeah, the last, so every time that we have an OpenStack Summit, they do the super user, or the user survey, and the last one we have results from, which was prior, I think, the Mitaka release in Japan. We saw that for production OpenStack instances with 1,000 cores or greater, NetApp and Solidfire combined had 21% of the respondents in terms of leveraging our technologies for storage services. Obviously Ceph has a big implementation because we're still not seeing necessarily very performant use cases around OpenStack, but for those customers who do want to do kind of like that provision IOPS model, the way Amazon does on premises with their own cloud solution, basically their own OpenStack implementation, we see Solidfire being leveraged primarily because of our QoS capabilities, and that every instance can have its own volume and its own account created with that, and we can service those in good, strong multi-tenancy, multi-application environments.
So do you see large organizations and large service providers adopting more Solidfire and NetApp Fast for other use cases, or it's a mix of both?
It's kind of a mix of both, and we still see the fact that we've done parallel development across all the disparate platforms inside the NetApp portfolio, whether it's AltaVault, FAS, E-Series, Solidfire, all of those products. NetApp had taken our strong lead in developing OpenStack integration points, because investing in an area like OpenStack very early on doesn't generate a lot of revenue in the very beginning, but over a course of time, as the platform becomes more mature, we start to see more and more adoption and development, and that's where the fruits of your labor really pay off. And it's an open source ecosystem. We've always developed and given back to the community, and we've always put a premium on doing that, and I think you get recognized for your expertise because of it, and customers feel comfortable coming to you as kind of like somebody who's been part of the ecosystem, has paid attention, has people inside your organization that sit on the foundation and help drive the adoption and development.
So I have another question, and so we had here Andy just before you, and he talked about the death of storage with me, right?
Right.
So actually, I'm just curious to know So do you just provide your system and the Cinder driver to the end user? So do they need something to integrate your solution? Do you have professional service to help them to integrate, or is just easy as it sounds?
I mean, it can be fairly easy. I think in many OpenStack environments, we're dealing with full stack engineers that have experience across the entirety of the stack and the portfolio as it's implemented. But also we see that in our partner ecosystem, which we rely on heavily, their expertise play a big role as well. So while as Solidifre ourselves, we didn't necessarily have a professional services arm that would go out and do implementation and installation, we would rely on our tech solutions team, which with Ed Baldoff and John Griffith had a lot of significant expertise around the OpenStack arena. And then also our systems engineers themselves had a fairly good depth of understanding in that space. Working with each customer hand in hand, usually as we started to kind of start with a small proof of concept, build that into an actual production environment and then expand it. And believe it or not, most of our customers are more than capable of actually doing even the implementation installation themselves, because for them, it's the core competency and it's a value add that they bring to the table that allows them to have a competitive advantage as they leverage something like an OpenStack or an open source technology where they're really in control of their own destiny and not reliant on a vendor per se so much.
Yeah, I see. So where we can find more about Solidifre and OpenStack?
So, obviously solidifire.com, there's an entire page dedicated to OpenStack in there. Our GitHub repository has a lot of information on it as well. We have our developer advocacy program called the Pub, where you can go to find out, netapp.io, you can go find information about what we're doing in terms of the code we're releasing out to the public. Obviously follow us on Twitter and come join us at OpenStack summits whenever they arise, and also meetups.
Okay, great. Thank you, Gabe.
Thank you.
Thank you.